indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to a regular session of the Goldendale City Council. Do the roll call. Steve Johnson. Here. Dave Jones.
Here.
Lauren Mayer.
Here.
Andy Holmes.
Here.
Roberto Montevideo.
Here.
Mylan Wall.
Here.
Good. Ellie is away on a family trip and asked to be excused. We need a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse Ellie Casey from attendance at this Goldendale City Council for August 7th, 2023. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Almost missed it. Have anybody here for any public comments specifically on those items on the council business? There'll be another opportunity towards the end of the meeting also for public comment.
You're in the council business.
Seeing none, we will move on to the public hearing. In this public hearing, we open the public hearing and the topic is imposing a 6-month moratorium for development of RV parks. And I'll ask Pat Munyon, our city manager, to
Yeah, so a couple months ago, you guys passed a moratorium, and within so many days, we are required to have a public hearing, so this is the public hearing for the moratorium on RV parks for a period of 6 months. At this point, it'd be closer to 4 months remaining to give the city council and the planning committee to finish drafting some revisions to the ordinance. This is not to prevent RVs from ever coming in, it's just to give another process of a conditional use review prior to them coming in, so the public comment can be taken instead of an outright permitted use.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have anyone here to make comments or ask questions concerning this this moratorium of 6 months? Do we have anybody on the line? I don't believe so. Hearing none, we will move on to close the public hearing. We appreciate it's been accepted and the work has been done to work out that moratorium.
Question.
Yes.
Maybe it's a typo, but on the cover page, it says it's ordinance number 1227. On the opening page, it says it's ordinance number 1527.
It should have been 1527.
So it is a typo. Thank you, Steve. We'll go on now to the agenda and consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda?
So moved. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for this session of City Council and the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're going now to presentations, and the first one comes from Jim from PUD. Please.
All right.
You got it.
Thank you, everybody.
Good to see you.
You guys moved through your agendas. That's fantastic. I was going to say, does that mean keep this short? Is that what I was Commissioner Dan Gunkel was going to be here. He had a semi show up for a load of peaches, so asked me to pass along his hellos and do it. So here I am. So just a quick update. I don't know how many of you have been watching newspaper articles. Ruralite magazines were embarking on an automated metering system. My wife had always said if we're not raising rates, nobody worries too much about what I do. Well, that's not always the case. There's lots of folks interested in the AMI system. But tonight what I really wanted to do is give you just a little bit of background about what we're seeing, what's coming, and how it might impact the city specifically. Carbon legislation from Olympia, it is starting to show on the electric side of stuff. There are moratoriums to remove coal, not allowed to add any fossil fuel generation. I think most folks know with electrification, whether that be electric vehicles, load growth, people move into our community. It's a very popular place to be. I think we've grown 20% in the last 20 years with our contracts with Bonneville and how much power we buy. So what we are seeing is significant load growth. Like I said, we're 20% above what Bonneville will allot us under historical prices. We've got contracts with Bonneville as preference power as a public that we get access to power at cost. For perspective, that dollar figure is about $35 a megawatt hour. Think of $35 a unit. Up until a few years ago in the markets, when we had grown past what we're allowed to buy from Bonneville, we would go in the markets and we'd be buying power anywhere from $30 to $40. It didn't make much difference. That's not the same anymore. Retiring coal plants and electrification, basically what we are seeing in the industry, specifically in Washington, but in the Northwest, is decreasing supply. In other words, you can build wind and solar, but wind and solar does not work at night. The battery technologies that might make that possible to happen and smooth that over years is still a ways out there. Goldendale pump storage project, I think is a good idea. But basically what that means then is our supply to meet, call it 4 o'clock in the morning in February and the sun's not shining, wind's not blowing, is getting harder and harder and harder. My opinion, we will see rolling blackouts at some point. Whether they're severe or not, don't know. I just see these loads growing and I do not see supply increasing to meet them. But from our economics, we know if we have growing demand and you have decreased supply, what happens to price? Well, we're currently buying 20% of our power over and above the contracts that we have with Bonneville for the $35 power. We just signed contracts for the next 2-year rate period for Bonneville for $60 for that 20%. We knew that was coming. If you recall this last winter into January with our last budget, we raised electric rates on average 4.5%. On the residential side, that's probably closer to 2.5%, and it affected different rate classes differently. 1% of that, or 1.5% of that, was our cost of doing business: oil, fuel, wages, materials, all the supply chain issues and things we've all seen. And 3% of that was increased wholesale power supply purchases to buy power to serve our customers. The actual impact is 9% as of now. And the board elected to take that 9% and spread it over time unless things change. So for what's coming, I would expect, I'm not a board member, I don't make the decisions, but unless things change, it sure looks to me like our cost of business are going to be 1.5% a year if we're lucky. That's probably being way too optimistic. But our wholesale power supply cost, I would expect that to come over the next 2 years as well. So that's a 10% increase in costs based on power supply issues alone. It's got nothing to do with the businesses that we do. So I'm not going to make a comment about whether or not carbon policies are good, bad, effective, not effective. That's not the point, and that's not what I'm here for. But what I am here for is to tell you that there will be impacts, and we will see that in our costs of businesses, we'll see that in costs of our homes. That's not a death knell, and it's not a, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, but it's real. So as a result of that, we're spending a lot of time figuring what our plan looks like. And we've been watching this for years, expecting it to come. So we changed our contracts from now until the next 2 rate period to buy from Bonneville rather than buy from the markets. We know what the rate is, it's about $60. The prices in August this year were $250. We think we made the right decision for 2 years to get us stable. I will be shocked if in 2 years when we do this again, that price doesn't change again. I still don't see much besides solar and wind getting built. So I don't see it easing on the demand side of what's out there. So what we are doing then is, what are all of our alternatives, sorry. So one of them is going to Bonneville instead of the market. At least it's stable, we can plan for that because we can't plan for markets. That's a 2-year decision. We'll have another 2-year decision after that. We are looking at various generation options, whether that be solar with backup, which doesn't pencil at the current moment for us. We continue with Bonneville. We're actually looking at small modular nuclear reactors. About, well, I don't even know the percentage, 5% of our power through Bonneville comes from the Columbia Generating Station that Energy Northwest runs. That's not a decision, but if I look forward, if you can't build natural gas generation, what other flat baseload product that's available 24/7 is there? That's zero carbon. I don't see any other options out there. So we're doing our diligence on where that all goes. Everything that I see is, at best, if it works and if it can get permitted, and all of those risky things in any kind of development, that's probably 2030 or 2032. So we're trying to figure out what we do in that meantime as far as power supply goes. Automated metering, it's not really about just reading meters automatically. It's not really about that at all. Got some very effective meter readers. Larry and I were talking. We only read about half of our meters. The other half are self-read in the rural areas. So this is not about saving costs with respect to staff. What it is about is understanding our customers' usage, which actually means understanding how much of the product we sell and when we sell it, because that's really what this is. All of these metering systems, I've heard some comments about, well, it's an invasion of privacy. Well, it's not private information. This is private information about the product that we sell. It would be my opinion going to Chevron and getting a bill on how much you used and what days you used it on. Not everybody sees that, and I get that, but that's the perspective that we have. It is clear that at peak times, in the evening, when everybody gets home from work, especially in wintertime, turns on heaters, those kinds of things, at some point, plugging in electric vehicles, I think we're about 300 electric vehicles in the county already. That peak demand time is going to get more and more expensive, especially when you have renewables that only go during the day. Trying to have something available to meet the maximum load is going to be very difficult. So the intent is, from the commissioners, redesign rates that align rates with how we incur costs and give customers then a choice of what they do. Our rates were put together, frankly, whatever it is, 90 years ago now. Bonneville Dam, Grand Coulee, tons of power, they're just trying to sell it. Back in those days with the metering and such, it's easy just to measure how much everybody uses, and hopefully people use a lot so you can sell it all and pay for the projects. That was the rationale. That rate design hasn't changed in that 80 years. How we actually incur costs, about half of the costs that we collect in your bill pays for wholesale power, the piece we just talked about, and the other half pays to keep the poles and the wires in the air, maintained, expansion, people, all of those kinds of things. So what actually happens is we are selling a product that's 50% power supply and 50% infrastructure, and we're pricing it as though all of it is power. Well, that doesn't actually work. If you want folks to have the choice of, for example, one of those things is net meter. If you want to install solar to offset your load, great, and you can offset your load. Currently, you also offset all of the costs to maintain the system too. Well, one person's decision can affect somebody else. So Commissioner Randy Knowles had asked, what we want to be able to do is try to come up with a rate design that piques our customer, makes us agnostic, and can support any choices our customers choose to make. You want to install wind or solar to be able to offset your energy, no problem. If you're going to rely on the system for the battery to store it and give it back to you, or rely on it when your system isn't working to support you when there's a peak, you have to pay for the infrastructure. You can't offset that too. So where I think this is going is AMI basically gets us the reads on a regular basis, puts our data together, we know who's using what, where we're using it, and when. That then, on a rate side, you can charge differently based on what you learn. The whole point then is if we can, at some point in the future, price our product so that if you want to use a lot at this point in time, it's cheap, and if you want to use a lot at this point in time, it's expensive, because that's what it costs us. A customer that then changes their usage habits benefits themselves, and it also benefits the utility from the perspective of we're spending less money. If it benefits the utility, it impacts all ratepayers, right? Because money doesn't go anywhere. The other piece so that's a power supply piece. The other piece that we are seeing is load growth, but load growth in specific areas that flat aren't built for it. Sadish Pass is going crazy from our perspective. Line was built up there long time ago. 80-acre parcels, a lot of that is zoned 5s. So what we are seeing is a lot of load growth on the end of spaghetti, and a lot of that line is getting overloaded and is going to need rebuilding. It's not just there, it's also Snowden, there's some areas in Appleton, there's specific areas that are very popular that are developing. And that's fine, right? That's our job. However, what we're also seeing with the advent of broadband and Starlink and electric vehicles, a lot of the load patterns are totally different than what they used to be. One of the fellows at work has a F-150, the Lightning, a new electric truck. Tripled his bill in a month in wintertime. Still more effective than gasoline, price-wise for fuel, but tripled his bill. So you think about it, we've grown 20% over the last 20 years with just folks moving to this county, and my bet that doesn't stop. I think that continues. It's a great place to live, but existing customers can add that much load on the end of these small systems. There are tens of millions of dollars potentially out there that we're going to have to spend of our money, all of our money, in order to upgrade the system. So part of the rationale behind in knowing when power is used, how much, and where, if we can be 10% better on our capital plan, I'm just saying that. We spend between 10 and 11 million a year on capital. So if we could be 10% better, there's a lot of money at stake with this on that infrastructure side. So those are the drivers that we see going on. If we have that system, we will also know about outages when they happen. So currently, customers call, goes to the answering service, we dispatch a crew, call a customer, they drive out, they find a problem. If it's a simple problem, they fix it. If it's not a simple problem, they call in more crew, and then they drive out, and then they fix it, and they all go home. With this, by the time somebody comes in, the system has already looked at all of the calls or all the meters where they're located, traces them to one source. That's the device that operated. Lineman looks at it and goes, that's a 3-phase device. Probably want to take another member of the crew, and they drive out together and they solve it. So a whole lot more efficient in operations and things. It's not the driver, but it's a big piece of it. So my message for everybody is not that things are terrible. Carbon policies have real impact. That's not a statement of whether the carbon policy should be in place or shouldn't be. It's just there are impacts. They're not tax related. They're going to show up with respect to what it does to the electric market. Encourage you to follow newspaper articles. It's trying our best, as much as you can say in 450 words or less in every article. It's hard to do, but just to give some perspective to the things that we're facing, but more than that, the things we're trying to do about it, to try to look after the best interest of everybody in the county. As you consider economic development, there's something, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's an observation for the time that I spend outside of the county. Not all utilities are the same. I mean, we know that, but generally speaking, when we've seen rate pressures, almost all the utilities see rate pressures. That's not the same anymore. A lot of the west side utilities are seeing load loss. And we're seeing, we're the recipients of some of that, right? but they're also being very, very active in conservation and all of those things. So at the end of the day, I'll use Seattle just because it's an easy one. They have less load now than they did 5 years ago. So we're in the market buying that additional power to serve new customers. And the way that we are set up, if we buy that more expensive, we buy and meld and we roll all that together and that becomes everybody's cost. Seattle's not seeing that. They're actually seeing a decrease, so they're still happily cranking away at their $35 power instead of the $60 power. So you may see things that, wait a minute, I thought Jim said this. That is not the same as what it has been in the past because of that significant load loss. I'd never seen that before. I mean, it's been over the last 5, 10 years or something, but just a little bit different. So we're kind of a little bit of a victim of our own success. It's a great place to live. We've got councils like this that do good work in making our communities better. Consequently, people want to be here. But in the back of our minds, that's going to increase our cost just because by the time we purchase more expensive power to fill it. And we'll do what we can. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Don't know if there's questions or anything I can answer while I'm here.
Thank you. Does anyone have a comment or a question?
You mentioned Seattle is seeing the opposite trend, and even though we have such growth, would any specific residents, would anything we do at home impact that, and would that impact be significant enough, or the impact of future growth and requiring electric smart homes, would that impact that as well?
It would. My guess is, so one of the big debates with the EMI system when we can talk to the meters is there's one side that goes, there's great ideas, and there's another group of folks, we stay out of my home. Well, we can't control anybody's devices. We can talk to the meter to get the information, that's all. There are systems, and my guess is, maybe in your career, probably not mine, we would get to the point where we could add infrastructure, because it exists, but we're not putting it in, where at times of need, if you and I have a deal, if between this hour and this hour we run into these issues, we come up with terms, we won't let you run your hot water heater, but in return you get reduced rate, or whatever it is, I think all that's coming. It's some years out. When we're doing the system, what we're trying to do is establish the communication paths and the information. That won't change. We might need more equipment to allow that to integrate with homes. We're just going to do this step at a time. It's a ways out there is my guess. I'm thinking it's 5 or 10 years, it's not 1 or 5 years, and I don't know that that's right.
What about like simple fact of changing light bulbs to LEDs or something like that? Would that help?
Huge difference. Yep, absolutely. On an individual house basis, doesn't really matter. But if all the homes or a majority of homes start doing those kinds of things, yeah, we see a big difference in that. And we have conservation programs. We have an energy services manager, Anita Clever. That's what she does, is look after folks who are looking for conservation, loan programs, those kinds of stuff to help with that stuff. I think it's very powerful, and I think it's going to become more. I think the west side is a lot more sensitive to that, and they've done a lot more of it than we have on the east side.
Anybody else with a comment?
The current federal administration has a lot of funding out there for green energy development in rural areas.
Yep.
And the city has a water supply system at elevation, all piped. Is there potential for the PUD and the city to work together to potentially put in hydropower on that system to help increase our local electrical supply?
Short answer is, I think so. When power was $35 a unit, not a chance.
It's changing.
Looking what's coming, yeah, it might be. So we actually engaged somebody here just recently who follows this kind of stuff that has enough to get us started. So we'll start looking at those kinds of things because those opportunities might be there. I don't know if it is in this particular case, but that kind of stuff flows a lot more consistent than solar and wind.
There's a grant funding source that just came out to help support that kind of work too.
Okay.
So you might look at that or I
We
can
should.
send it to you. Yeah, I mean, it's not as, I mean, you can put in another storage tank or storage reservoir up there and then have it on demand versus just people are using water. So you got that
Exactly. I think there's a lot of that stuff. A Well, and part of the issue is, I think, as a Pacific Northwest, we've been blessed with cheap power, which means a lot of this stuff has been talked about, but hasn't been done until, prices change. Unfortunately, that's what drives it, but that's what drives it. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Well,
Thank you all.
we appreciate getting a heads up. And,
Yeah, like I said, my guess it's 10%, or it's that 4% range the next couple of years. Past that, who knows? Or does it every year, just like you guys do a budget every year and no performance.
exactly.
Thank you, everybody, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. The next presentation is by Andy Holmes, and it has to do with the Goldendale Pride Alliance and their event.
Nancy can look at that. So on July 22nd, we had our third annual Gay Pride event at the 100 block of West Allen. It was a little bit complicated this year to find a place to have it, but we thought we did the block party. It worked out really good. It started out about 6 o'clock with the Pride Walk. We had 30 to 40 people do that. We started at the courthouse steps, went to Broadway, down to Riverview, across the street, and then back to the event. At the event, of course, family friendly. That was our goal this year. It has been every year that we've done it. From 6 to 9, it was family friendly, all ages. At 9, it went to 21 and over. There was food, drinks, giveaways, bouncy house. There was adult drinks at the event. The bookmobile was there. A quick note about the bookmobile. They had 67 visitors, and they issued 4 new library cards. So that was some cool information from them. Let's see what other information I have here. There was no major issues at the event itself. This year we decided to determine how many people showed up to the event, so we did the paper wristbands. We had 300 green for over 21. We had 300 for the red that was for under 21. We ran out of the green one, so that puts us over 300 people that were over 21 that were at the event throughout the night. We had roughly 150 left over of the red one, so that puts us at 150 of under 21 people, people that were there. And so that was pretty impressive. We know we ran out around 8:30 on the green slips or the bracelets. So we know we had over 500 people at our event throughout that night. It was pretty incredible. The food vendor, we told them about 150 people were going to eat. We weren't expecting 500 people, so they actually ran out of food. So they did really well that night. We also did at the welcome table, I'll walk this around, we had a board that showed where everyone was from. As you can see, there's a lot of different areas where people were. I think it was Phil's daughter was here from Texas, and she actually stayed an extra 2 days so she could come to the event. So it was pretty impressive where people were from. So there you go, Nancy. If you want to look at that. But yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Is there any questions?
Council, questions or comments?
Oh, and also I want to say too, the reason why we're doing this presentation is because we were granted $1,700 from the city, and so we did use all of that. I know we spent a lot more money on top of that too, so we put that money to good use for our event. So yeah, I think I covered everything I needed to cover. So I wanted to,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you guys.
The next item will be department reports, and we'll begin with the Goldendale Fire Department.
Okay, so lately we've been doing a lot of mutual aid, wildland type fires, actually throughout the county. We had a truck out on the Newell Road fire, and it was there for 20 hours, I believe no, it wasn't 20 hours. Anyway, quite a bit of hours, and when it goes to state mode, they end up paying the initial response from the time it goes state mode to the time the team comes in and takes over. Our trucks can make a little bit of money doing that, so it was out there. I think it's 15 hours is what it was, that truck was out there making the city a little bit of money doing that. There were some bigger fires. The Pine Forest Road fire, we were out there for a while. And we had some damages that we had to replace, so we've been, or to repair, we've been dealing with that, got everything back in working order. So the fire department went after the AFG grant through FEMA, so Assistance to Firefighter Grant. We went after 20 air packs, and I believe we went after probably right around $200,000. They awarded us $187,000 for new air packs. It would be 20 new SCBA air packs, and that would be replacing our 15-year-old 3 NFPA cycles behind. So every 4 years, NFPA goes through a new cycle and they change what's required and all that good stuff. So that's a pretty good deal that the fire department got. It is, we'll be matching $8,904.77 is what the match is on that. So at an earlier council meeting, I mentioned that Phil went, after Legends Casino grant, we were awarded monies, $5,000 for AEDs and community outreach. So the AED has not been ordered yet, but we will be doing that. And this is actually through the Fire Department Association. So the Fire Department has an association with the 501(c), so tax exempt. And Phil's got some information on what we're going to be doing with the community outreach.
Sure.
So part of the community outreach, we've been trying to do some classes. So we actually have for August 22nd, we have a CPR class, first aid CPR and AED. Typically, what we've seen prices range from $50 to $100 per class. So the grant's going to be able to pick up some of that so that we can offer it at a discount rate. Again, on the August 22nd, we'll have one class there, and then on, and I'll specify that this one's going to be in English, because on August 26th, on Saturday, we were going to have a Spanish class of the same first aid CPR or RSP. So yeah, that way we can reach out to more community members because we know that emergencies happen and they happen everywhere. So, and then as part of that, we'll be looking at scheduling another course for teens and older siblings, basically, that are at home babysitting and deal with emergencies. So that'll come in the future as well.
So yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mylon.
Well, no, I'm going to say, it's great, Chief, that you got the $187,000. How long do you, like the air packs, how long do you predict them that you're going to use them before they have to be replaced, or do you know?
So it's 15 years.
Okay.
Well, no, that's not true. It's 20 years. So it's, they have to be, the bottles have to be hydroed every 5 years.
Okay.
So that would put it at 5 years, and 15 years the bottles are no good. Or it can't be hydroed after 15 years. So that would leave you 20 years for
Okay.
those packs.
Yeah.
However, NFPA is changing, and I believe it's
Right.
anything 2 NFPA cycles behind is considered they're no good. So 8 years, which is
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So then that's why we went after that, because they changed, NFPA changed a whole bunch of stuff, which put us on a higher bracket to receive that grant money.
Well, they've been doing that for some time, but again, no, it's a good job that you
Yeah.
got that. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
and I want to thank Sasha helped me, Phil, Juliana, and myself. We spent a lot of time doing that, getting the numbers ready and all that good stuff.
Yeah, good, thanks.
exactly an occasion to say thank you for your service. We need to say that to every volunteer fireman because they do a lot to keep Goldendale safe from these fires. Thank you, Noah. Goldendale Police Department, Mike Smith.
Not much, been real busy. We did get our recruit, Officer Adams, back from the academy last week. He passed, he's on his field training right now. He'll spend about 5 months with another officer, side by side. So if you see 2 people in a car, it's not because we're overstaffed. It's just because we're actually stuck. 2 positions, need to be filled. We're in the process of hiring another one. We'll have our second recruit out at the end of August, so she should be back here, I think it's the 29th she graduates, so I'll be going up for another graduation for that. We're out about just under 2,000 calls for service this year, which is incredible for this time of year. Things have not died down like we thought. It's been, I don't know, it was hot weather, fires, people, what have you, but we've had just a array of different calls that are, everything from petty thefts to domestics to, animal calls. It's just been a little bit of everything. So we're still pretty busy hanging in there, just looking forward to getting back up fully staffed and back the way things should be. So other than that, things are going good.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Goldendale Public Works, Pat.
Yeah, so the wastewater treatment, well, this is a water issue more than a wastewater treatment, but the guys have been working on the generator out at Bassy Wells. There's been some, for the last couple of months, some electrical problems going on out there, having trouble getting the motors to start up. They've been working on that. They've made some progress with the electrical side, and then we also were having trouble with our backup generator, and that issue seems to be resolved now as well. I don't want to get into the details because it gets a little complicated what was all going on. The Public Works crew has been working on, continue working on the maintenance of the reservoirs. They've been spraying them down and getting some of the rust areas off of them to get them sealed up with some stop rust. That's something that we're going to have to put on the docket maybe for next year or the year after to get in there and get some new paint on some of those to recoat them. They did have a severely plugged sewer line in the last 2 weeks that took some significant time to get it cleaned and back in operation. On the other side, on the water rate, the CIP, I'm tentatively should be ready to have another meeting, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or even at the next city council meeting. We've got all the information in there now, and she sent me a draft over today, so if somebody wants to stop by tomorrow, I'm more willing to print out a copy of that draft and give it to you so you guys can look at it. We're working on TIB grants. We need to finish those up. Those TIB grants will be based on our 6-year street improvement plan. We are applying for reconstruction grants, overlay grants, and what's called, they have a term for it, but it's more of a maintenance, pavement preservation grant, which has more to do with crack sealing and chip sealing surfaces. There were roads that are still in good shape, and to keep them in good shape, we want to seal them back up and resurface them so we can get a longer life expand out of them. The ASR, we're starting on the ASR. We've got the grant in place. We've given the contractor to go ahead and sign that agreement with Aspect Consulting. It was just a change to their original contract as an addendum to it. So they will be proceeding on that. This is not the pilot test itself portion of it. Department of College needed some additional information. So they gave us a $200,000 grant to hire Aspect Consulting or whatever consulting firm we selected to go out and gather that additional information. And that's going to help them determine when we move forward, if it's feasible to go into a full-blown feasibility study and then give us a better opportunity for a bigger grant funding source at that time to proceed down that road if it comes out to be feasible. And Mike Hussey, who does our code enforcement for the city, he's been having some pretty good success on getting some of these older trailer houses and structures around town, getting some movement and getting those removed from the vacant, or the lots that they're still sitting on. So we'll be getting rid of that eyesore and help cleaning up the community. And Mike's done a really good job, and Shelley helps him a lot with code enforcement. They've both been doing really good on code enforcement and getting a lot of people to comply. And I think it's just their approach on how they're doing it, and it's working very well.
I agree. Anything else?
That would.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the things that all three of these departments are achieving and doing, and the work you do. We'll go on now to council business, and this item is sort of a joint effort. Richard Lundin and the mayor. This is the Airport Advisory Board bylaws. This is something that we've already seen. We got it at the last council meeting. But if you have questions on the details that you might want to have questions or answers for, or if you want to change something, I'm asking for Richard to handle the questions, or not the questions, but the answers, because you're far more knowledgeable.
And I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
So, and that really is the purpose of having an airport advisory committee. You get people who know aviation. Yes, ma'am, sorry. I can practically feel it. You get people who know aviation, they know business, they know how to structure leases. I've already done a fair amount of work as far as gathering information on what we should be charging for leases, what we should be charging for tie down, what we should be making on a gallon of fuel. And to bring that information to the council. You know, we don't make any decisions. We just go out, research the information and say, here's what we think we should be doing, and then the council gets to decide what you want to do. And we're a resource. If you don't have the answer that you want, or you don't have the information that you want, we'll go out and find the information for you. Additionally, I went out and I'm an AOPA member, which is Airplane Owner and Pilot Association. They have a group of folks that are airport support network representatives. And if you, in particular, if it's something that applies to regulations, environmental things that are coming up, they're a great resource to go out and say, here's what we want to know, what's everybody else doing? So those are the kind of things that this committee could bring together. I did put some names forward for folks that have volunteered to be on the initial round. If you want bios, I can get bios from folks. And it's all volunteer. So it's a resource that would be really handy for the council to have if the airport's going to develop. We've got a new fuel system out there that is not quite finished, but those funds came from Gina Mossbrooker. She made them happen. We also have gotten a grant from the Washington Department of Transportation for $362,000 to do some swapping and trading of land to get, so that the council owns all of the property that is on the airport and has direct control of it. And in addition to that, we've gone out and written a grant to help widen the runway. We put in for $4.4 million from Newhouse, Representative Newhouse, and he put us in for the, what do they call it, congressional directed spending. So hopefully we will get some portion of that, if not all of that. And this is just a committee that we can put together that will get a cohesive input for the council and do research for you. And I turned this in once, there was a request to do some changes, I made those changes. Anything else I can tell you?
Anything else? Steve?
I guess I was kind of surprised by this because this was given to the subcommittee at council and we had edits and changes in there, and then I didn't see all those edits and changes in here. So I kind of feel like if a committee of the council itself doesn't get all their edits back to the full council to discuss, then we should probably send this back to the committee to revisit so we can talk about the edits that didn't make the cut by whoever, I don't know if that's Pat or whoever that may be, but I guess I think just having a committee look at it one more time would be warranted. And there's a few things that maybe in that quick edit session that we did, I think we had half an hour that we maybe missed a few things, like some of the roles and responsibilities, like doesn't really lay out the responsibility to ex officio members. So I don't know if Steve, you and Mylan were on that committee with me, if you guys would be willing to take a second look at it and sit down and talk about it some more. I think that's probably warranted since all those edits didn't make it to the final draft.
We can do that.
And at this point, I'd like to ask also, how are we going to go about forming this committee? Are we going to, is some committee going to do it? Is full, and come back to the full council with recommendations, our recommendations, or what we've got? I mean, right now, we're dealing with the bylaws, we're dealing with the articles of operation, which is fine, but we still haven't addressed how we're going to go about forming the committee.
Oh, okay. Both
We need
deciding
staff.
membership, that's one step, but also the council's biggest benefit of this type of approach is you'll be receiving not opinions from the board, but expert-driven advice. And that's going to be priceless for you, and that will guide a lot of how we're going to get this completely set up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've still got, it says right in it, will be appointed by the city council.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm just asking,
And there-
the path.
That advisory board is to the council.
Okay,
So that will be
okay.
something you may have. I would imagine certain times it may be as needed advice or questions put to that advisory board on different issues that you're seeing come up. But I think it will help the progress on the airport by quite a bit.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good.
Just a question. So that's a good question, Stephen. So if it goes back to the subcommittee, I would say making the edit to say that the advisory board will make recommendations for future members, and at any time that the advisory board is not able to, such as they're barely starting and there is no members, then the same subcommittee that looked at this, so the three of you, would review and make recommendations to the council. So that way, if at any time we lose all members or we're starting again, somebody's got to review the applications and take the first look, and then after they get going, the advisory committee can make their own recommendations.
Yeah. That would, it's a standing committee,
Right. And this,
even though it's a subcommittee.
right. But there'll be a committee to the advisory board itself that you will work with.
Can the committee meet this Wednesday?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. Wednesday?
Yeah, 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 o'clock, okay.
So do we make a motion then to table this item and then send it back to subcommittee for another review?
Second.
That is my motion,
Second,
sorry.
could be second.
It's been moved and seconded to give further study to the Goldendale Airport Advisory Board document and to return to the council with advice for the council regarding the Airport Advisory Board and the aspects of this contract. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
What the comment, Mayor, I think we're moving along real good on this. This is a great start. We've been working on this for I don't know how many years, so I think we're moving along real good.
And an airport is surprisingly complex to operate. You've got federal officials and state officials that are going to get in there and so on at different times. But having a small expert group, not just a small group, but expert group that Richard has built out of this effort to do this document is a huge benefit to the city, and we appreciate it, all of you.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
just to clarify that, it's still, we're grateful for Richard for all the work, and tabling this item does not reflect anything on your work that you've done, so.
I don't take it personal. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda that we'll address is the report of officers. And we'll begin with the council members, and we'll start with Andy.
I'm good.
Phil Bergville.
I want to say thanks to everybody that's been working over the fires, all the volunteer firefighters, and then we had all the agencies working together. I had some concerns watching that fire and watching the response from my preview as to, how close we are on direct flight path to that fire, even though, it was blowing east and not west, but that could have changed really rapidly. So I thank everybody that worked out on that. And I know that from the initial attack, that initial response that our volunteers do makes a big drastic change. I've mentioned to other people that, knock on wood, the type of response that the Goldendale area has between the city of Goldendale, rural 7 Centerville, and some of the other neighboring districts, we have not had state mode in quite a while, because the response is such a large one that you get the job done, you put the fire out, and you come home. You don't mess around with it. Unless it's way in the remote area, like this last one, the Mill fire was, that it takes a while to get there, and by the time you get there, it's quite large. So I think that's very important to note, and a lot of people are moving into our community that don't understand that you have to be prepared, don't understand you have to sign up for notifications, don't understand that things happen, and it can happen to us. So with that, I'd like to request for a 30-minute presentation for the next council. I'd like to gather a couple of folks, experts in that, to tell us, first, the information that the council should know if anything was to happen within the city limits. What's our role? What's our job as elected officials? And hopefully it never happens that way. But then bring some experts also on the safety and preparation, because if we're prepared and we educate our public to prevent it, then we'll keep it from happening. So if I can get that for next council, that would be.
I think that would benefit the council as well as our citizens in this community. And what documentation or documents that could be supporting those types of training and advice, because it'll go out to the public either in a newspaper or things that can be printed and circulated. So this would be a very good way to help not only new people in the community, but all of us to be a lot more aware of why we have to keep our safety skills up to protect the city. Because it can happen, it's happened to other cities before, Centerville being one. It's an incredibly important job. Thank you.
Yeah, just to touch on it a little bit, stuff to think about, like the Newell Road fire. If I'm not mistaken, Phil, town of Pickleton and Roosevelt at one point were in level 3 evacuation.
Yeah.
So evacuate the town. And how big that fire was, it would be very difficult to protect all the structures within those two communities. Now think of that in our own community, because we are
That's it.
the same kind of community, just a little bit bigger, so.
It's kind of like first aid, learning CPR. That's any citizen can help out. If we learn more about protecting our community from fire, we'll be helping our fire department too. And that's worthwhile. Thank you for the Mylan.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I guess I just wanted to also repeat on what Phil and those comments about on the fire department. The volunteers did a great job. I know Beckelman and Roosevelt, and they did a great job for about the first, I don't know, first 8 or 9 hours before they finally got mutual aid coming out there to help them. And it takes the whole county. And again, when you go in state move, you have to have all your local resources before you can go in state move. And so that was quickly done. Local resources were all there, and then that way you can immediately go on state move. And the state move is, I mean, I've been involved for many years on it. It's a whole new system. I mean, it's quite an operation when they come in and set up, and it's pretty impressive how they do that. So, but anyway, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to learn more. People need to do fire-wise, and that's when you clean your area out, do the best you can. So anyway, so that's that. And then also the airport. I think we're moving along very well, and look forward to the continued progress and see what happens.
Good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mylan. Steve?
Old business. I'd like, I'll direct this at Pat, basically, it's all public works. Are we making any headway cleaning up the language on that 0.5% sales tax issue?
Yeah, I can present you with the attorney letter at the next council meeting and executive session.
Okay, thank you. And also, I keep getting more people asking me about the dead trees on Observatory Hill. How are we moving on that? We talked about it.
Yeah, I've talked with Doug, and he, be better if we met with Doug maybe later this week and talked to him about it, because right now it's not a good time to be up there.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's got some plan for this fall, but I think it's better you hear directly from him than me trying to repeat it, how they get those trees out of there.
In other words, Public Works might take that on themselves.
They might, yeah. I think they were kind of, that was the way Doug was leaning. He thought that was something that they could take on.
Okay.
But I don't want to put words in Doug's mouth, so I'd rather,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Later this week, you say?
Yeah. He's been out since, he was heading in earlier today, but he got called back out on a fire. He was out all night. So he's been out on a fire probably most of the day. Or is that fire still going, or did they get it out?
They got it out.
Okay. But I'm pretty sure he's pretty tired, so it might be I'm not sure if he's gonna be here tomorrow or not. But I was thinking maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
Well, we've got-
Since we're already meeting on Wednesday, maybe I can have him jump in that meeting for a little while.
Oh, okay, combined. Do a Public Works meeting?
Yeah, Thursday, or Wednesday, sorry. Wednesday at 3. We'll just do it all the same time, do the aviation stuff, and then we can talk about the tree stuff.
Okay.
Was actually, yeah, it's the same ones of us around the
Yes,
Public Work Committee.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that'll work.
okay.
That'll work. And then one last thing, I brought this up before, also in this old business. It's not epidemic by no means, but people living in RVs on personal property, on personal lots in town. Like I say, this has been discussed before, and I see a new one here and there, and old ones that have been here forever. The electricity is, the electricity situation is crisis.
Yes.
This isn't yet, but housing is critical, and that's what's driving this. And we're putting a moratorium on RV parks, and so I just wanted to address this one more time. I'll keep addressing it, just keep reminding that it should, what's against the ordinances. We've got ordinances against us.
Yes, we do.
And,
Well, I know there's RV parks in town that have spaces available. I mean,
yeah,
I'll pass it on to, remind me to pass it on to Mike in the morning. I'll pass it on to Mike in the morning to look at them, and then, and if you could send us some local areas where they're at, that would be helpful, so he doesn't have to drive around looking for them.
well,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Dave?
Thanks, Mayor. Hey, just wanted to revisit the Parks Committee. Steve, myself, and Philberto are on. You know, we did quite a bit of work on that committee, working on that parks plan, and I was talking to a few of the other people that are in that committee, Lori from the Park and Recs District, and Jonathan Lewis, and a few other people that, you know, put in a lot of work. I'd like to, you know, sometime maybe after school starts back up and the swimming pool closes, let's get together and try to hash that out and get it finished, you know, because that parks plan that we're working on right now is, oh, well over 20 years old, and we need to get that new parks plan. We've got so much going into it, it'd be a shame that all that work we put into that, you know, for nothing. So we're getting close, and I have all the contact information for everybody, so I really like to get beaten up on that and bang that baby out.
Is there an element on what we're gonna be doing down at the Little League Park with the grant we got?
We didn't talk about that yet.
Yeah, that may be something why we've got that on the horizon, just the, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a detailed, you know, description of what we're doing, but get it in there so it is in the park plan.
Mhm.
That way, when we go out to get additional grant funding, we've got it covered in the park plan.
Lori
If
did
it's
a
not
lot of
covered-
work on that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a few little things that need fine-tuned on it, and we have it on that computer program that we were working on. So, yeah, I'd really like to get going on that. You know, it doesn't need to be here anytime within the next few weeks, but after the swimming pool is closed, the swimming pool closes when school starts, and that's right around the corner. We want to get it hashed out before the holidays come up for sure. So, you know, we'll talk about that. I got everybody's contact info. Getting all those different people together is the challenge, but there's a lot of talented people on there that have a lot to offer, you know. County Commissioner Dan Christopher was on it. A lot of people, and if we can get them all together, and we've got all those people working for us, we want to take advantage of any help we can get on that.
So can we maybe commit to the first week in September so we can get started? At
Well,
least,
I'll
at least
commit to
re-meet.
any time, but we really want to coordinate with all those other people that
Yeah,
had all the talents they were offering. And
be about a month out maybe
Yeah.
to start it.
Just leading that on behalf of the city.
Dave.
All three of you?
Yeah, no, the three of us and administrator, city administrator.
Future work for the council.
Oh, and that's all I had on that subject. The only other thing I wanted to mention to everybody is the Friends of the Goldendale Community Library will be hosting the annual ice cream social on Thursday at the library from 5 to 7 p.m. This year will also be a celebration of Goldendale's 50th anniversary of joining the Fort Vancouver Libraries. So it should be a good time. There'll be music and ice cream and watermelon. I don't know what else, but I'm looking forward to it. And just been a great relationship the city's had with the Fort Vancouver system. All the different programs they offer and the vast resources they have have really been great for us. And here's to another 50 years with them. Thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
No report.
No report, okay. Steve, you had something?
Add a footnote to Dave's comments, especially regarding the parks, Park and Rec. I believe the levy passed.
It did.
It did.
Yes.
Historic historic
You're exactly right.
numbers,
75%.
75%.
That's really rare in Goldendale.
Very rare.
People know where we need.
Yes. Yes, so we know we got the community behind us on the Park and Rec, without a doubt.
And the key to successful funding is that park plan.
Yeah.
That's what it's based on.
Get that park plan together, and that gives us a chance to apply for a lot of grants.
Yeah. It's a
Do
smart
some
way
good
to go.
things. We have a lot of good ideas on the table, you know, for working on our parks, really exciting stuff.
Real good.
Is there a draft of the updated plan available?
I'll email that to you. It's not finished yet. Yeah. Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, as far as reports or remarks of the mayor, the thing that struck me particularly, I've seen it ever since I've been mayor, but it was particularly impressive and exciting to see how our three departments work, not only together, but work so hard for our community. That's a big thing, both the fire, police, and public works. They all work to serve all of us in this community, and it's an incredibly well-run part of Goldendale that people look at and they understand they're safer in a number of ways in Goldendale. It's just a marvelous thing, and I appreciate all that the three of you put in personally, but also the staff of each one of these departments. Their work is just absolutely excellent. It's all there is to it, and it helps every one of us, council, community, everything. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. Pat, for Public Works, or for city.
I kind of went over it. I always go over it all the time.
I
So there's no
think it's easier that way, but
Yeah.
I'll quit asking. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody here for public comment on anything in the meeting? Not seeing anything on the screen or here in the chamber. We need a motion to approve, or to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and second to adjourn city council for August 7th, 2023. Thank you all very much. Cooperation is so much better.